Hey there, welcome to another Tesla Motors Club podcast. My name is Lewis.
I'm Doug.
And I'm Mike.
On today's episode, we have a bombshell news announcement to cover. I am still shocked. It's been a few days and I'm still surprised. GM announces they will be switching over to use Tesla's charging plug, or the NACS standard. Ford recently announced it. GM is following suit. Anyway, I'm still shocked. Anyway, we'll get into that. We're also going to cover a bunch of awesome, interesting FSD version 11 latest stuff. We have a special guest. Rocco Speranza is going to come on. He's a YouTuber. Lots of people know who he is. He has more viewers than us, so certainly more of you guys probably know him than me. And he tests FSD a lot. It's really interesting. So we'll get into that and more. Episode 43 starting right now. All right, we're back. We're here. How are you gentlemen today?
Excellent.
Pretty good. I'm on the East Coast still, and we're recovering from all the smoke from Canada. So,
have you been migrating south as the smoke has been coming down?
No, but it was pretty bad last week, and it's kind of funny because I did the thing that made me leave the West Coast, at least temporarily, was all the crazy smoke from the fires, around the start of the COVID pandemic. Because okay, I can't do stuff, and I can't go running. And it was like, okay, this is terrible. And now it's here. So climate change is real, people.
The solution is I don't leave my house, and when I do leave my house, I'm in my beautiful Tesla that has HEPA filters and bioweapon defense mode.
Right.
So I'm covered, right? Like. It's good.
What's funny about that is Elon seems to have forgotten that the Model Y got the HEPA filters also. He was like, oh yes, the Model X and Model S have them, but not the 3 and the Y. I'm like,
that used to be true.
Yeah, it used to be true. But maybe you should keep up on the product line.
Current events.
Yeah. too much going on Twitter. All right. So before we get into all the juicy gossip, have to introduce our special guest, Rocco Speranza. Welcome to the show. Why don't you tell the few people who don't know who you are, a little bit about yourself and your Tesla story?
Yes, my name is Rocco, of course. I have been beta testing since December of 2020. Just kind of did it as a hobby. I got into Tesla, I wanted an electric car, and as everyone knows, they're one of the best you can get. So that's what I decided to get. At age 26, I got my first Tesla, and I'm 31 now. It's been best car I've ever had. Well, second car, but best car.
Best out of two.
Yeah, for sure. They were quite an upgrade from my first one, but yeah. So I'm here. It's an honor to be on. This is actually my first podcast I've ever been on, so it's kind of new for me.
Wait, so what was the first car? You can't leave us hanging.
1999 Hyundai Accent.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that's better than my first car.
Well, the struts were about to fall out, and it vibrated going above 65. So.
Well, you probably don't want, you don't want too many teenagers driving that fast anyway. So might have been good to keep you slow down. So tell us a little about you. You got a YouTube channel. You've been doing YouTube videos for, I think I looked on it, it's been 13 years now or something. This is kind of crazy. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I, in high school, I guess YouTube just, started to become big, and I heard a few people can make money off of it. And so I started just making videos. But really just tech videos. I standard high school nerd, just made videos on computer stuff. And so just anything, YouTube was pretty fresh back then. There wasn't a lot of videos, and so whenever you would look something up on a computer, you just couldn't find anything on it. So I was like, okay, I'll make a video on it so people have the information I wish I had when I was trying to find it. So I just started out doing basic tech videos, and then I kind of took a break during college. My channel actually got deleted, or hacked, and then deleted And so I had to kind of start from scratch again. But then I kind of retook it over when I got full self-driving beta. Figured people wanted to see those videos, and so I kind of started making a structure of those videos, and we can talk about that here in a little bit. And so that's basically where I am. I basically keep mostly to full self-driving. Occasionally I have been wanting to make some on like electric power tools, like the Ego products, like chainsaws and all that stuff. Doing a lot of, I just purchased the house a couple years ago, so installing a charger and all those type of things, just to kind of, keep it related to EVs, but still keep it interesting as well.
Right on. That's awesome. Yeah, it's interesting because it seems like, oh, it might be not that hard to do, but it's a lot of work. It takes a lot to do those things. Like I've installed 2 Tesla chargers, and each time I'm like, oh, I should record this and put it up and do a thing, and it's like I don't end up doing it. You got to go through all that effort and all that work. So I appreciate folks like you that do actually make the videos and show the interesting stuff. So yeah, let's put some B-roll on there, Doug or Danny. Why we shut that off? We got Rocco's driving video
Yeah.
about what he's doing here. So you're basically testing FSD Beta, right?
That's right. So this right here is what I call my crazy hill test. If you look in the lower right, you'll see, I never counted, but a bunch of hairpin turns. And so when I first got beta December of 2020, I just got my house, and this is near it, and I tried doing this. I basically gave up because it wouldn't even do it. It was just, I didn't even bother making a video. It's like, well, I can't even get one turn without it crashing, basically. Not the car, but the software would just red hands every time I would go around a curve, and it just would give up. So I just basically manually drove up and down, and so I didn't bother making one. But you can see I have playlists on my videos of each route I take. So if you want to go back, I think, let me see if I can find how far that goes back. So Crazy Hill, probably the beginning of 2021.
And so in 2021, what were we on then?
I think version 8.2, maybe. I can find out here in just a second.
Oldie but moldy.
8.2. That's ancient. Come on.
Yeah, it was. It's kind of crazy because that's back when the it had the visualization with all the dots on the screen, and so that was everything's changed a lot. It's not like bringing up the playlist for me, but anyways, but if you go to YouTube channel, I'll have a link to the playlist, and then you can compare each version. This most recent one you're watching right now, it's the first time it ever got to 0 interventions on this. Oh, wow. It wasn't perfect by any means, so I don't want to exaggerate that. Like I would trust it falling asleep yet. But the biggest issue, and you'll see that at this turn most likely, is it stays too far left.
I was thinking that. I was like, man, good thing there's no oncoming traffic.
It's the oncoming traffic or the Porsche that's racing up the doing the hill climb or whatever.
I've actually had that from the opposite direction. So on the video before this one in the playlist, well, I was going up the hill, and I mean, as a human, I couldn't see either. You go around this blind turn, and then a car all of a sudden shows up, and the foliage will block it, so I can't see that car coming down the hill, and my car, of course, can't see it coming as I'm coming up, and so we kind of just like met. We still made it, but it's one of those close calls where you might have to like brake all the way and then restart.
Do they have mirrors posted on it? Like normally I've driven places like this, they have mirrors up so you can actually
up in the
see
corner
around the
so you
corner.
can see.
Yeah.
Not here. We do have a couple places in town.
I don't think FSD Beta will work with those mirrors.
Certainly. The Tesla's not going to use the mirrors, but a person. So really a person doesn't have better visibility here than the Tesla does. So it's impressive. So it got down to 0 interventions. You said it's been about 2 years and of testing this specific route with it, and the like 2 years ago it didn't work at all. The software just couldn't handle it. And then has it been like a progressive improvement where there's been like where it's just been fewer and fewer interventions as you've gone?
Any
Or has it been back and forth? Like was it better and then it got worse? I'm just curious.
For this particular route, it seems I would usually test it every few updates, every major update, and it did get usually better each time. Now that's not always the case. Where some updates will have regressions, but this route particularly did usually find something improved every single time.
And what part of the country is this in? Like, where is this route located?
This is near Saluda, North Carolina. So if you look up the Green River, this is right next. This is all of a half mile off I-26. So this is very popular to get down for. It's a kayaking competition. It's down here for whitewater kayaking, and so This is super popular for kayakers to come up and down this road all the time.
So for the audio listeners, what we're doing is we're watching this video of FSD just sort of driving down this very hilly.
What a lane in the quarter.
Narrow, and it's just it's bordered by
hills and trees,
and and there's no guardrail or anything. Of course, it's going down fairly slowly, and honestly, if I were driving, I would have taken over a long time ago. Like it's doing it, but especially around each curve, it's so cautious, and it's not as smooth as I'd want. And yeah, it is kind of hanging out. Like I don't think it's quite realizing this is possibly a two direction road. So you might end up, encountering somebody. So yeah.
I do on the way back up. So as I'm sure it'll get to that later in the video, but
I can jump there.
It's somewhere later in the video. I have it marked in the chapters where it starts going back up. But it usually gets really hesitant, and it'll just kind of brake harshly when it meets someone, and then it usually does just fine as long as you're not on a very narrow section of it. Then it'll
practically looks like one lane.
It's crazy.
I gotta say, Rocco, I'm impressed, but I watched this, and I'm trying to figure out why your car can do all this really cool shit, going up and down the hill like this. My car can't get out of the damn neighborhood because of a roundabout. There's a disconnect there somehow. I'm just not sure where.
I've noticed that. Did you have a lot of pedestrians or other cars, I assume, around?
On my little route, there's cars parked on the side, which FSD tends to struggle with, especially if the cars aren't parked up against the curb. If they're parked kind of, as most people would, with the butt hanging out in the air, or maybe they're away from the curb too far, FSD seems to struggle with that. Not a lot of pedestrians. It's just street traffic.
Yeah, I've noticed the more complex the situation, that seems the more difficult. Like if I had more cars coming down on towards me in this video,
I think it would struggle a bit. Yeah,
yeah, definitely. I honestly got lucky on this route because I never would have expected to get zero interventions, because I would normally meet someone coming around a corner and then I would have to disengage. But I just kind of, let it do its thing, and then sure enough, it made it. And this is the first version that actually not crash. Specifically crashed the software. With the not
glad
the
you
car.
specified that.
But with the red hands, it would always just freak out going around a corner. It just wouldn't know what to do, and it would just disengage.
See, that's what I get leaving my neighborhood. Is it basically goes in what I call a cyber meltdown, and just says, I'm done. I can't do this anymore.
Okay. Yeah. And so that's definitely improved with version 11. So I'm there.
That's impressive. That's impressive.
And
that's really cool. So so you have a lot of FSD content in your channel. We'll come back. I do want to talk more about a lot of this stuff because it is interesting, and I love seeing how it's been evolving over time, which you do cover very well, and you have a lot of knowledge on. I do want to talk about though because we could spend all day. We could talk about FSD for the next 5 hours. I do want to cover the GM news because I'm still like, I've told people, like, I feel like I've told random strangers this news, like at the supermarket, right? Like I brought it up to my wife at least 3 times. She'll be like, yeah, you already told me. And I'm like, oh, I did. Like, I don't know. To me, I can't believe it. When Tesla first announced they were opening their standard, and I'm putting that in quotes, they were opening their standard because
air quotes.
we viewed it as like this is just some BS to get some tax dollars because the whole White House had their incentive program, yada yada. We're like, it's 10 years too late, right? Like Tesla,
Yeah, the
should open
timing
their
was
standard.
the timing was terrible, right?
It was really bad. And we're like, no one is going to use this. No one is. But man, I don't know who worked the magic. It was Elon. If it was, some COO person, like that I don't know about.
It's not magic. It's not magic. It's a very tacit acknowledgement that the CCS charging network as a whole just sucks. And these car vendors are going, we want to sell EVs, we want to sell our cars, and customers are walking away because they can't charge their car. And here's Elon with a standard that everybody loves to death, right or wrong, and it works. So, I mean, in my mind, it's a no-brainer. Yes, it's late, but it's not too late, apparently.
Yeah, I was pretty sure it was too late. It's like, okay, it's a nicer connector. It's definitely a nicer, nicer ergonomics. Ergonomics is much better
by far,
especially compared to CHAdeMO and CCS1. Often it's CCS1 isn't that bad. Sometimes I feel like the some of the charging station vendors or whatever, that they're trying to be too fancy with it, and they have like this extra handle or something on it. I've seen fairly
big
sleek
handle,
ones.
the big handle on it.
Yeah, like as if
like a fuel pump.
Yeah, it's like a bit too much. I used an i3, and that on the EVgo chargers, it was handleable, but not as nice as the Tesla connector. But the main thing about the Tesla is the reliability of the network. And I mean that's maybe, I don't know. I feel like that's orthogonal to the connector itself. That doesn't have to be related. So, but yeah, I was pretty sure that, okay, yeah, sure. You had this closed standard for a while. That was in a way a moat that Tesla had. They were the only ones that actually made that investment that we're going to build out our own charging infrastructure when no other manufacturer was going to do that. Certainly a few years ago. True. Rivian has kind of dabbled in it a bit. Since
so
Rivian
Mercedes, and I mean,
Mercedes, did they have their own network?
They're dabble. I mean, as you said, they dabbled. They kind of played around with it and not really. They weren't serious.
Well, I mean, as I said before,
it's capital intensive, so I can understand why they weren't serious.
Right, and if you look at pretty much everyone that's tried to be in the business of a charging network, in terms of selling the electricity as opposed to just selling the hardware, a lot of those guys went out of business. Of course, it might have been a little early. There might not have been enough of a user base, but they couldn't do it profitably. In many states, it's illegal actually to sell electricity. You need to be an energy producer to do that. And so instead they have to pay, charge for time or something like that instead of power.
Right.
And
charging per kilowatts per minute.
Right. So it was sort of a difficult thing. And Tesla made the choice that, okay, we're going to have to be in the charging network game also. But since they're only supporting their own vehicles, it made a lot of sense, right? And they had that vertical integration and the nice software of just plugging and charging without having to carry around a separate RFID tags or whatever to initiate the charging. So GM has now followed Ford, and that feels like, okay, these are two major manufacturers, and that gets the dominoes falling to a better standard. And now also some charging networks have said, oh yeah, we'll start having the NACS connector, that Tesla connector. Okay, that's fine, but that doesn't make them better. Right.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not just the connector that makes it the experience that you want. it's everything. It's a package deal. It's the fact that you and I and any Tesla customer can roll into a Tesla supercharger, pop the door, plug the connector in, and literally walk away. I mean, that is the epitome of seamless.
I mean, Tesla even makes the door popping a nice little experience.
Does
Right?
it?
They do. Which is more than I can say for GM with their CCS doors. Yeah. but you know, I kind of wonder if this is going to open the door on a few more aspects of it, because you know, if you watch the video that was put out about CCS versus the Tesla infrastructure inside the car.
You're talking about Sandy Monroe's
YouTube,
Mhm.
where he did a side by side, and I hadn't realized that CCS was so ugly under the hood, as it were.
It's so ugly on the surface. Why
Well,
would
it
the
is,
under the
but
hood
you
be
know,
pretty?
you would think maybe I'm giving the manufacturers too much credit. But
Well, even the standard is a little bit dumb. It uses power line communication when you have pins that could have been data pins anyway.
Understood. But it was very stark when you look at that YouTube video and you see Tesla's design laid out next to the CCS design, and you know, he comes up and says, "Yeah, the Tesla is 35% cheaper to put in per car or per unit." And you're talking some real money when you're dealing with 200,000 units, 300,000 units. I mean, that's a lot of money saved. And I'm wondering if GM and Ford are kind of looking at that going, maybe we should leverage a little bit more of Tesla, not just the plug itself.
Yeah, that's probably likely. I mean, that Tesla being vertically integrated, they have a real incentive to not just decreasing obviously decreasing the cost,
right,
the
overall
vehicle
cost and the elegance and the simplicity,
but also individual parts, since they are making those parts, as opposed to GM. I mean, I don't know, but you would assume that there may be a third party. Certainly there's a third party that makes the connector, the charger connector, maybe also some stuff downstream of that connector in terms of where it goes into the car. So yeah, so what you're proposing is will Tesla be selling more of that hardware? If they sell the port, or they're also selling
right. Here's the port, and here's the
down.
cable, and here's the control and electronics. We'll make a nice package deal. You can save maybe 15% per unit. We'll take the other 15% in our pocket.
I mean that's the stuff we don't know anything about, right? We don't know what Tesla is getting out of this, like how much. I mean, they may be making it as if it's like an open standard, but we don't know how much Ford or GM is paying Tesla to have access to the superchargers for whatever hardware they might have. We do know that Tesla will open their API up so that say the Ford navigation system can find superchargers that are compatible with Ford vehicles to charge them, which is another thing that makes the experience great. Like when I'm traveling,
it does, but it bothers my friends who drive Teslas a lot. Based on some of the rumblings I've heard, people are worried about Chevy Bolts showing up and sucking up a slot or whatever. Most of the Tesla owners I know are not happy about this at all.
It's not all positives for both sides, right? There's going to be pros and cons to each. Rocco, I'm curious. I assume you've had a Tesla. You said something. It's been what, 8 years now or something?
Yeah.
5 years. Okay.
5 years. Yeah.
So I assume you've had supercharging, throughout the ownership of the Tesla.
Lewis is not a supercharger. That's why.
I'm now coming up on a year. I'm a week away from 1 year of owning my car. Never plugged it into anything except for my home charger. But anyway,
Okay.
but if you first of all, I'm just curious. Were you surprised to hear about these other car companies, Ford and then GM, saying they're going to switch off of CCS? Did that come as a surprise to you?
Well, Ford is short notice, and so is GM's. So it wasn't honestly that surprising. So there was a video that Sandy Monroe and Monroe's Associates put out last year where they interviewed Ford.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And as soon as they did that, they asked about, would you partner with Tesla charging, or some question regarding that. And it's like, yeah, they're going to do it. That's when, after that video, it's like, yeah, they're definitely talking with Tesla. And And so, sure enough, I was actually on a road trip back home when that announcement happened. And so I was like trying to explain it to my mom why it was such a big deal. She didn't quite understand it, but yeah. So I think as soon as one big automaker took it, then it's basically just a domino effect for the rest. And sure enough, GM, just last week did the same thing. My guess would be Rivian would be the next one that will do it.
What about
Really?
Chrysler with the big electrification of their Jeeps and the whole Jeep infrastructure?
It could be. I hope with the Jeeps. I mean, Jeeps like to go off road, and that's why the Rivian network would be really nice to have a NAC connector, because I like to go camping a lot, and so
Sure.
I go in the middle of nowhere, and so Tesla doesn't seem to want to build chargers out in that area. So if you can get someone like Rivian who will, that's just a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, they're talking about putting solar power in, right? Isn't that the deal? They call them like adventure stations or something like that.
The Venture Network, yeah.
Yeah.
So two observations. One is, so we're gonna call it the NAC now. Is that the NACS?
Like the band.
NACS.
We're actually gonna say that. And also again, Rivian is sort of following the Tesla model, and of course I'm sure they have plenty of ex-Tesla employees there.
Yeah, go
the original promise of the supercharger network was free forever and solar powered. So they're supposed to be like solar.
We're still waiting for that solar power. Yeah.
You gotta have batteries for that.
The way they do it right now is the solar installations from their customer base offset the supercharger. I think it's the way they get around that wording.
Well, it's fungible, right? So you can say that, sure. I mean, and look, I'm not going to fault them. It didn't make sense financially to be building solar panels at every location, and it could be a solar farm, it could be on some completely different location. That's fine. They're electrons. You can move them around. That's fine.
It's true. Move pretty readily too.
It is what they do.
So I guess. Wait. So what does this really mean? Like I've said that I'm not really sure. Certainly, other other vehicles using the Tesla network, I think that'll be a nicer experience for them compared to the other vehicles in terms of CCS1 maybe going away or at least becoming less popular. And, often there's that sort of beta VHS comparison, which isn't a perfect metaphor really, because beta lost, beta was there before. And I honestly, and I will say I've been wrong. We all were like, Tesla's a little too late to the game with this by trying to make an open standard. But you have to think, this stuff was already in the works, and we just didn't know about it because, a company like Ford and a company like GM, stuff, it takes time for them to make decisions like that, right? So this had to be at least months in the works. And does anyone remember when Tesla made that announcement of opening up the standard?
We can look it up. I mean, I want to say maybe 8 months ago.
Yeah, I think it was like last fall.
If it was only last fall, you'd think the stuff would have to have already been in the works. Now, it did seem to correspond with a, sort of a government announcement of trying to subsidize charging connectors.
Supposed to be building out the new charging system.
And
they promise
that
chargers every 50 miles or so.
Right, and that seems to favor CCS, right? Because that's
so far
was the established standard. So I don't know if the government will change their minds on that or not. But again, it's not a perfect analogy. Of course, VHS won out. Some people think Beta was the better standard. It wasn't necessarily better. I grew up with Beta. We had a Beta machine. It was fine, but.
You chose poorly.
It wasn't me. I was a child. It wasn't my choice, but it was my much older brother who chose Beta. I don't know why. If I could tell him, even then I think it was kind of obvious when he did it sometime in the early 80s. But anyway, it's not a really great comparison because You know what? I couldn't put my VHS tapes in a Betamax player, but you can have adapters, right? You can adapt between.
Well, and they've said as much. I mean,
right. So they can coexist for a while, and that should be fine. I think manufacturers really should want to use that Tesla connector because, gee, it's cheaper, but also just in terms of the design of your vehicle, you don't need such a big opening. Like Tesla did it nice and sleek, so they could stick it, behind a reflector.
Basically on a tail light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. I guess another thing to consider though is, the placement of the charging port. I don't like Tesla's choice of where the charging port is. I think the rear driver's side doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
You don't like their front cameras either, so.
Yeah, okay, that's another issue.
That's a tangent. Let's not go there.
Yeah, don't get me down that road. But the main thing is that there is, especially in cities, curbside charging, and you don't want the connector hanging out into the road, right?
Agreed.
So I would have thought, and also when people park, at least in the US, they tend to park nose in. And so I would have thought the charging connector should have been the front right quarter panel somewhere there.
Side, front.
It's funny you bring that up about that port position, because we just got a complaint from our HOA about charging one of the Teslas in the street, because the cord has to basically go around the back of the car into the street and then back up into the port, or I lay it over the car. Neither of which they like, because the connector is facing the street.
Yeah,
because they're an HOA.
Yeah,
park facing the wrong direction in your area.
I can't do that either. They'll write a ticket for you. So,
I don't understand that choice. But it is what it is, and all the vertical integration, all the superchargers are designed for the car to back in, unless it's a pull through design, which there are some of those too. But now all these other manufacturers put their charge port wherever, right? If they put it in the front right, then it's potentially compatible. They can pull in, and that's equivalent to being on the driver's side rear. But not everybody does that. And I don't remember where it is on the Bolt. I think on the Bolt it might be rear passenger side.
I don't remember.
So then if that person parks to charge, he's in the wrong spot, so he's effectively taking two stalls. That's going to be an issue.
Win friends.
That's going to be an issue.
So I mean, it sounds to me like both of you are very, very much thinking about the fact that this is going to impact Tesla supercharger users, because the main reason to do this for all these other manufacturers is so that their customers can access the Tesla network. But what are your thoughts on like the other charging networks switching over to using this port too? Okay, right. So like I imagine EVgo and those types are gonna switch over.
Let me correct you some here, Lewis. I think, and this is my personal opinion, that both Ford and GM have decided to embrace NACS, whatever we want to call it. Really, because they've got a customer base that they want to tap into. They want people to buy their cars, or EVs in particular. Mm-hmm. And they've already seen in the last couple of years that the CCS charging network as a rule just sucks completely across the board.
Sure.
And people are literally saying, we won't buy your car because it's not a Tesla and it doesn't have the Tesla experience for charging. I told Cadillac that straight up when we were talking about the Lyric. In fact, when I mentioned that, they just hung up the phone, and that was the last conversation I had with them. So
you probably had enough experience with Tesla fanboys.
Yeah. So, but CCS hate is real, and, EVgo already supports Tesla to a degree. They've got a plug and go type system available that will support Tesla with a CCS adapter. They don't care whose. It's passive, so it just passes through. I use it. It works well. They've had Tesla charging for a very long time, which is really CHAdeMO in disguise. So that's kind of a sneak way to get in, but that's low. That's only 50 kilowatts. EA is in trouble. EA's got the worst reputation that I'm aware of.
I hear EA is blowing up Rivians.
Yeah, there was one that caught fire recently and burned down in the parking area. So not a good PR movie.
But you got to feel like EA is it's like Volkswagen putting on the high vis vest and picking up trash on the side of the road, right?
Yeah, community service.
Yeah, exactly. It's their
Well,
their
it is
penance.
Dieselgate. I mean, it's penance for Dieselgate.
It's their penance, right? So are they even? Do they even really have their hearts in it? You know, it's begrudging, right?
Up to now, I would agree. It is very begrudging. I think Volkswagen's going to have to take a hard look and decide if they're serious about it or if they're going to walk away from it.
Well, do they even have that option?
I
mean, this is their penance, right?
Well,
they're forced to do this, right?
They were forced to do it. I'm not sure when that order runs out or if it's already run out.
I mean, okay, so I feel like the shock is that the whole world, for the most part, most of the world uses CCS. North America was a little bit different because Teslas were here first and whatever, and they had their own standard. And I feel like most people, not customers, but most like industry type folks, were probably hoping that eventually Tesla would give up on the NACS type thing. It wasn't going to happen, but that like everything would just be CCS, right? Because like if you look at it from a manufacturer standpoint, Tesla even has to put CCS ports in their cars in other countries, European, right?
Yes.
So they do both styles, and it's kind of annoying that manufacturers would have to do this. So what I'm wondering is, do you guys think that other car companies that aren't made in the U.S. are going to possibly add these to their cars? I mean, and when I say not made in the U.S., I'm not talking about like for example, Jeeps are manufactured in Italy now. I mean, like non-U.S. branded companies, BMW, Volkswagen, or Japanese companies, Toyota, or whatever. Do you think they were going to start using NACS when they sell EVs in the U.S.?
I think they will.
You think so?
Yeah, because look, I think the trajectory right now, we'll see, and I'm surprised as anybody that I think the trajectory will be the NACS or whatever you want to call it, the Tesla connector, because it just simply is better. There are industry organizations that support CCS, and they're kind of pissed maybe about it, but overall this is good. I don't think it's like some huge amazing thing like Tesla wins or whatever. I just think it's better. It's just a better connector, so it's a better experience for the consumer. And I think if you look at someone like Nissan, for example, Nissan still has CHAdeMO on their vehicles in the US. Okay, that standard is definitely dying in the US. Now it's a Japanese standard, and their vehicles in Japan still have a separate CHAdeMO and J1772 connector. If they're going to keep selling EVs in the US, at some point they're going to have to get rid of CHAdeMO. Why not just go straight to the Tesla connector? It will save them money. Right?
So riddle me this, Doug. I'm going to use my little catchphrase.
It's been a while. Do you have a drink? You need to take a shot.
Hadn't said it in a while, so I had to
riddle?
Blow the dust off.
What's your riddle?
If EA or any or EVgo, I mean, let's just pick EA. Mm-hmm. If EA had been more aware, successful, positive experience. In other words, if they'd actually supported CCS correctly, made it work, and had it so you could drive up to 5 stations and all 5 would work, would Tesla's adapter had any chance in hell of being adopted? Probably not.
It's a good question. I think that, EA has been a terrible experience, but the other thing is just simply the install base. I mean, how many EA, any EA charging stations out there compared to Tesla charging stations? And I just don't think that the rate at which they're being made, I mean, that's why the government was trying to intervene to give some financial incentive. But it
went the other way, what they were planning.
I feel just a bit.
I mean, certainly giving customers a terrible experience. And I had it as a i3 driver with, having to charge and it just like not working, not being available.
Oh yeah.
And Tesla Seamless. That's the thing, though. Again, the connector. It's the stations, right? It's the existing install base stations. If EA at some point changes to the Tesla NACS connector,
still gonna suck.
That's. I mean, unless they learn other things, unless they also learn how to be reliable, and and also have an API that publishes the working stations, and so you know how many are in
Accurately.
use.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Then it's
It's
not
a package deal.
It's still not going to be a better experience for the consumers.
I'll say this, my experience with Supercharger, and just for the record, I supercharge almost every single day. I run 2 Teslas. One I don't drive as much. The other is my daughter, and she drives it every single day, and that car gets supercharged almost every day. The experience is 99% great, but we did have an experience last week where the charger was supposed to be charging at 18 cents a kilowatt. It was charging at 47 cents. And it took me all morning to find somebody at Tesla to report the problem and say, what are you going to do about it on my account? It was a very painful experience trying to.
Okay, so the most surprising thing about that story is that you were able to get in touch with somebody at Tesla.
It took some work. I'll be the first to admit that. It took some serious work, and it took about an hour on hold with some very bad music.
Don't publish that phone number online because they'll disconnect it, right? Keep that one secret.
But once I reached someone, they were very professional. They took down all the information. They were a little surprised I was able to give the VIN number and the station ID and all that. They weren't expecting that.
So they gave you a refund? So that was
they refunded the whole charge, actually. Yeah,
that's probably easier than doing.
Yeah, instead of trying to figure out the difference, they gave me the whole charge as a freebie. But it was literally an all-day experience.
Okay, so now think about how much money you spent on that supercharging, and then how much your time was worth trying to get somebody on the phone to even do it. Then. So how much was it? Like $20 or something? Or?
It was $12. It was
$12.
Yeah.
For how many hours?
I probably had maybe 5 hours all in.
Mike, you're not even making minimum wage, my friend.
It was the principle behind it.
I understand, but
and I was really irritated because I've caught people bash on CCS chargers, and I use EVgo a lot.
Well, hold on. Sorry. Before we move on from that,
all right,
can somebody insert a clip of Mike bashing on CCS adapters? Because he was, because I'm certain that we have footage of that.
Sorry. Yeah, Mike is the only one who's regularly using them still.
So people bash on CCS adapters, including Mike. Go. Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Please put right here.
Okay. All right. Sorry. So your point was,
I'll call. I've had issues with EVgo. Charger doesn't work, won't accept my RFI card, whatever. They have an 800 number on the charger. I've been able to call them. They pick up in about 5 minutes, and it's resolved as I sit in my car, real time. Now sure. I've called them a handful of times,
and that's because they have so many problems that they need to.
That may be the case.
In a call network,
or they just
talking to somebody in India trying to help you out.
They may not be as antisocial as Tesla is.
Sure.
You know what, Mike? I think you should send a message to Tesla and
I did. I actually tweeted to Elon bitching about a supercharger network.
Did he reply?
No.
Mike and 100 million other people tweeted
that's right,
at Elon.
That's right. Why is he not listening to me?
Yeah. I mean, you have to understand, it's over the years it's been funny because early days, we used to have a thread on TMC, which has had a list of all the contacts, all the people you can contact, and they all worked. And
it's been a while,
the head of service, also communicated on our website, and they certainly only wanted specific people communicating on the site. But yeah, there was a lot of contact, and then at some point they basically got rid of everybody that was sort of PR or even like if you had a question for like a journalist who just
their marketing department gone.
Yeah, they completely went away.
Communications department gone.
And if anybody actually said anything, it was anonymous, right? Like this communication person who didn't want to be named, because if they got named, they might get fired.
Wow.
At least they don't do the Twitter route, whereas if you send them an email, they send you a poop emoji.
I didn't even get that. Yeah.
But so now you just get nothing. So. But yeah, you got somebody on the phone, and I
did get a real person who was very professional and polite. Props to him. and they did take care of the issue. When it
Don't
was
say
all
his
said and
name; he
done.
might get fired. No, I'm just.
That's right. I do have his name, but you're right.
Or like for $2.40 an hour, you managed to.
I got my
get that taken
satisfaction.
care
Doug,
of.
do you like? Doug, you must be real fun at parties. Raining on his parade.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to.
Here I was very proud. I actually reached a real live person at Tesla
Yeah,
to go
that's
and
an
rain on my
accomplishment, man.
parade.
I just want to understand the reality of it. I mean, there used to be this trick, like if you had your car in service and you're trying to contact service, you could never contact anybody at service. So what you had to do was call the sales line. And in sales, you'd actually get to talk to somebody and you'd say, can you transfer me to service? And then you'd get to talk to somebody at service. So, you see
that's what my plan would have been. Honestly, like, I don't know. I haven't ever had to call. I mean, I've only had the car, almost a year. I'm like, man, what would I do if I had this problem or whatever and I couldn't get to somebody? The only people I know how to call are the sales office, right? So like, that's who I would have called, honestly. But
I've never had.
I mean, no, wait, I take it back. There's a special secret plaid service only number that I'm not supposed to talk about. No, I'm just kidding.
Is it, you pay for a blue check mark?
Super secret.
Is that how it works?
Super secret. Yeah, but I mean, Tesla definitely is not they're like all the other big tech companies, to be honest. Or I should say most of the
get
big
someone
tech
at
companies,
Google. Can you get
right?
someone?
Who do you call at Google when you have a problem? Who do you call at Amazon when you have a problem?
Because
right?
it's just not scalable, right? Unless you can have like an AI service person that actually fixes problems for you.
Chatbots are going to take over the world.
I mean, then and it may work. That may happen. So I don't know.
Anyways,
any more with this connector? Is there anything else to say about it?
I mean, so I'm just curious. So Rocco, you said you were trying to tell your family member how amazing, or your mom or something, how amazing this news. Do you see it where you live, like other people that have or hesitant about EVs or other things? Do you think this type of change is going to be a positive impact to get more people to be willing to buy an EV, or do you think it's not going to impact that at all? Right? Is it mostly just going to impact those of us that already have them?
Yeah, I think it's going to be beneficial for everyone because as we all know, using the supercharger network it's seamless. And so I would have to imagine, I was going to mention earlier that they're probably going to have standards the Ford and GM have to follow. So you're not just going to, have a touchscreen at the charger or whatever. And they're probably going to require plug-in charge and require minimum charge rates and all that type of stuff. And then, that's going to help everyone. If all cars charge at a minimum rate, then it's just a win-win for everyone.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, honestly, I see nothing wrong with this. I think it's fine. I think it's a good result. They'll resolve whatever the issues are with the charge port parking. We'll see what happens. And Tesla owners, they're kind of worried about having access or the superchargers being taken up. I mean, the only issues I've ever had with supercharging is in the Bay Area. Sometimes I had to wait a little bit to charge, and I think Tesla has sort of taken care of that. I mean, they just anywhere where there's like high density and there's a wait, then they just start building in.
Yeah, they'll build more.
They just build in more superchargers, and on a road trip, I've never had to wait.
I can't say that.
And well, yeah, I suppose if you go at a busy time, that's when it can be an issue. But me personally, I've never had to wait. Well, let's see, maybe I've waited once, but it was again only a few minutes. So they're aware, and honestly, most places I go, there are a ton, and they're just idle because they have to be ready for whatever peak, and they seem to be doing that. So I think Tesla has this well handled. The main issue is for other networks, so Tesla network doesn't just be a monopoly, and other networks actually learn, right? Learn to be a proper follower and do the things Tesla does. And I don't think it requires even though I like it, the sort of plug and charge sort of thing. I don't think that's necessary. I think they could, you could tap, or maybe just allow a credit card, tap your credit card or whatever, I don't know that Tesla would ever do that, but you know, the other networks, they can do that. You know, just get the reliability up. You know, make sure the thing isn't failing. Make sure the thing isn't blowing up a Rivian. Though that must be Rivian's fault, right? I mean, that, that has to be Rivian's fault, right? If the car is the one that telling the charger what to do, right? So if the car catches fire, it must be the car's fault, right?
Must be.
Could
Obviously.
be.
I mean, I'm just
It
saying.
is statistically, it is most likely the car's fault. But
So I only say that because I don't think we can blame EA for that, even though it's kind of funny.
Just for the record, Doug, there are reports of Volkswagen ID4s burning at EA chargers.
Again, is it EA's fault?
Just
I
saying.
mean, the BMS is on the car, right? The battery management system is on the car.
They're both
right?
built by Volkswagen, so
yeah. So
no matter what it is, it's a software problem, I'm sure.
that's right. That's right.
yeah,
There's a bug somewhere.
but it's
software
you know, the
engineers.
car should should disconnect if it sees there's an issue. So
Well, that's all.
What if it
because
had a
the
LiDAR?
plug doesn't
No,
work.
anyway.
yeah,
Oh.
it had LiDAR.
All right, so
Speaking of LiDAR,
speaking of LiDAR, exactly. What a great segue.
Speaking of not
I think I
having
did that on
LiDAR.
purpose. So Tesla's, man. So FSD, we looked at some videos earlier, Rocco. You've been doing this the whole time, right? For a few years now in beta, seeing the progression. Are you optimistic for the future of FSD? Do you think it's, you know, Elon joked again saying he's going to regret saying this, but by the end of this year, do you think that timeline is, you know, remotely accurate, or, you know, what are your thoughts?
It really depends on your perspective on what type of full self-driving you're looking at. If you're talking to where I can pull out of my driveway, it pulls out of my driveway, and I can fall asleep and show up in a different state, that's not going to happen this year. I think that could happen by end of decade for sure. Now, if we're talking, I don't think any form is going to happen this year. Next year, maybe curb to curb. And 2025 is when I'm saying for some level of robotaxi, whether it's geofenced or something. I think 2025 could be it.
So 2 years ish, you're saying you think it's feasible?
Boy, he was more optimistic than we were.
Fair.
It just depends on, since last year, I've noticed, you know, with AI training that goes exponential. And so I think we're at the bottom of the exponential curve right now. And so it just seems like every update, it used to be every update was like, you know, it could have been 2 steps back, 1 step forward. It could have been just 2 steps back, 0 steps forward, or it could just, you know, something like that. Consistently, every major update, not these point releases, but the major updates have been consistently usually like 2 steps forward and maybe half to no step back. So every single one has been consistent improvements, versus back in the early days, you didn't know what you were getting. It could be worse at one thing, better at something else. But since the 10.69 updates, it's been consistently better with every major update.
Sure.
it's definitely better. You know, I got my car December 2018, and you know, autopilot back then tried to kill me.
Actively.
Actively. Yeah, I was on a like a 4-lane road, 2 going in each direction, and I'm in the left lane and on the, you know, the yellow divider, and it tried to try to get me head on collision with the guy going the other way, and of course I stopped it. But nowadays it seems pretty good. It's definitely much better, and that's amazing that I have the same car that I bought years ago, and it's effectively, you know, over the years it's a different car, and it's a better car than it was when I first got it. So that's pretty impressive. I don't know. I don't know if we'll see robotaxis, maybe some level of robotaxi. I think it's so important to Tesla's revenue for that to happen. Like they've
You mean for their stock price?
yeah, okay, probably the stock price, but like which is correlated to revenue.
Sure. I mean, they're making a lot of money right now without robotaxis.
Right. But I mean, I think they've really staked the future of the company on it. And,
Okay.
you know, we just spent at least a half hour talking about, you know, the charging stations and stuff like that. And that, you know, that what do they get out of it? You know, they probably get, you know, just a marginal amount of money out of selling, you know, electricity or being a charging station anyway. But you know, the FSD and the possibility of robotaxis, the real buy-in of a subscription fee that people actually pay and are willing to pay for a service. I mean, that's a big deal. I don't know, 2025. I'm not sure if that'll really happen, but it is definitely getting better. I don't know if I can say the rate is accelerating necessarily. It's definitely a lot better, and maybe their feedback system is better now. But in terms of like how they dial in to improve certain issues. But yeah, I don't know if I'm as optimistic, but it's definitely better. So I'm optimistic about the future in general, and I'm happy with my car. Even when it does kind of dumb things, it's still pretty cool. Like just last night, I had to drive for like several hours, and it's a pretty low stress thing, you know. So I'm pretty happy with it. So.
Yeah, if I go based on I take a trip almost every year to Michigan and back, and I kind of keep track of how many disengagements, not you know super accurately, but this year was substantially better than last May. So over the course of a year, it went from just you lost count of how many disengagements, you know, 50 plus, and then this year is maybe 15 for the whole trip up, and I went hours without having to do anything. Just you know, keep the hand on the wheel and just pay attention. And so that's never happened before until these most recent updates. So I can imagine like if you, you know, do that another year out, where's it going to be? Could it be down to like 5 disengagements for the 700 miles?
Yeah, I guess the issue is, I mean, that is a figure of merit. How many times did I have to intervene? But like the step over to can I actually not pay attention? That seems like such a big step because something unexpected happens, and you know, and then you know, someone gets injured. I think on our last show I mentioned there was a deer just you know about to walk in my lane, and you know, and FSD didn't do anything about it. There was I think just last week, there was a video came out of someone on FSD and it ran over a dog. And, you know, you don't want to, that's not going to affect your life, but, you know, you definitely want it avoiding a deer. It's debatable if it should avoid a dog only because by avoiding it, it might cause something worse to happen. But I would like it to avoid dogs. I don't want to. I don't want to run over squirrels. You know, if it's somebody else's safety, run over the squirrel. I'm sorry.
I'd rather hit another person than a dog. No,
I don't want to hurt. I don't hurt it. I don't want to do either. But yeah, someone just ran over a dog, and the FSD Beta didn't do anything. Now I saw that video, and that dog sort of really kind of ran out there, and I can't even say if I were driving, if I would have managed to avoid the dog myself. Though if I'd seen a dog out there, I probably would have slowed down just to begin because I know a dog is unpredictable.
Right.
So, you know, so what do you think in terms of that? Like, are you really ready to like, you know, you think in 2 years we'll be able to take a nap?
Oh no, well, yeah, that's hard to say. I mean, it's possible. I think it's going to be at most it's going to be heavily geofenced, so it's going to be heavily restricted in 25. So I don't think it's going to be level 5 in 2025. To be clear.
Yeah, you said by the end of the decade is what you were thinking for that.
Yeah, I could definitely see level 5, not with current hardware. Level 4.
That was my next question for you. So, okay, so not with current hardware. What do you think's lacking with the hardware?
Mostly the ability for the cameras to clean themselves.
I just want to reply. There's a comment. BitJam says it was Waymo that hit a dog, not FSD. AP did save the life of a deer that ran in front of my car. No, really, you should look. There's definitely a Tesla FSD Beta ran over a dog. I mean, it's it's disturbing. You don't actually see the dog because the cameras aren't on the nose like Mike knows I want, but that's a view I don't want to see. But if you look for it, you'll find it. We won't play it here.
There's a Waymo one as well, but yes, there was also or at least I saw some news about a Waymo thing a while ago, but with it too. But yeah, this one recently was a Tesla.
Now, somewhat related, there was a Washington Post article that came out recently that had some information about like number of crashes and fatalities while using Tesla versus other vehicles. I don't know if we want to go on about that, but my main complaint about it, though, it's looking at total numbers, and and Tesla just has so many more cars that have these kind of features than anyone else. I don't think that's the right way to compare them.
Yeah, you really need to look at percentages of total miles, which I don't do. Does any other manufacturer do that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
I mean, the problem is like there's so many different things that are relevant, right? So like highway miles are different from city miles.
Mm-hmm.
Number of cars, population density, like there's so many factors. Weather, was it bad weather versus good weather? So it's hard to really compare those things. Certainly, though, I think we could all agree, or at least I think most people could agree, that there have been more incidents with FSD as a whole as there have been more drivers with FSD, right? Like that's just going to happen. Now the question is it going up or down? Right? So like we have a baseline of there's been a certain amount of accidents for a certain number of FSD drivers. Over time, is it going to go down with how many incidents occur? Is it going to reduce the number of accidents that those drivers would experience otherwise? And that we don't know yet. But
I mean, at some
that's
point,
important.
I mean, you do want like per vehicle per mile when comparing one system to another. But at some point, you do need to be concerned about total incidents, right? Right, if more people get FSD beta now, I mean, like I know it's not something I'd want. I don't know. It's not something I want my dad, who's like 90. I wouldn't want him using it. I mean, I would hope it probably would actually. I'm sorry. It would
if he was driving, you would want him using it, but you'd prefer he didn't drive at all, right?
Well, if you're a regular driver, the problem is just getting comfortable with it, right? So the inexperienced driver, it's a weird kind of curve, right? Like as you get confident in it, you may be more likely to have an accident because you trust it too much. At least I think I know that there are things where I need to pay extra attention and I'm always sort of ready. But I mean, that was the reason for the first sort of Tesla deaths, right? That the driver, and this was just autopilot, just lane keeping essentially. The driver was just a big Tesla fan and just really confident in what the product was, and just didn't realize that it was actually quite limited and wasn't going to see a semi truck, a white semi truck across an overcast sky and actually, and not brake for that. I think as I like the Tesla approach in terms of progress, like putting it out there and having people report the errors and the disengagements, I feel like that is what really pushes progress. But it is risky. I think you will have more accidents, and certainly a certain type of driver probably shouldn't have it. And they used to have a filter, which wasn't the best filter, but that sort of filter of your driving safety score, right? And now anybody gets it, right? I don't know. But the thing is, they'll take your money, right? They'll take your money regardless. Right. So, they couldn't quite have that filter. If they had the filter and didn't take your money, but then why would they not take the money? So it's I'm not really sure what the right answer is there, the right approach.
The bright side with the camera monitoring, it's pretty hard to game the system now. So you have to pay attention. You have to have your hand on the wheel, your eyes forward. Like if I look at the screen too long, it beeps at me and say, "Please look at the road."
Yeah. Well, I've had where if
Yeah.
I pick up my phone, it whines. I've got my phone in my hand.
Yeah. So, and that's something Tesla rejected at the beginning. They're like, what do we need driver monitoring for when the car will just drive itself? And, that's Elon living in the future instead of realizing the practicality of right now.
Elon doesn't tend to relate to normal humans.
Yeah.
I mean,
But,
of course you need to monitor. People are going to cheat it. The water bottle thing, the weight thing.
well,
I know many of our listeners have done that. Mark used to talk about it all the time. He used it
Allegedly.
allegedly.
The current cheat right now is to wear sunglasses. It does not bother me for looking at the screen for an extended period of time when I'm wearing sunglasses because it doesn't know where my eyes are. Yeah, I keep my head straight, but I mean, I'm looking at the screen, and if I don't have my sunglasses on, it yells at me pretty quickly within a couple minutes of me trying to figure out what the proper route is supposed to be while the car is driving. But yeah, so yeah, I agree that we need, the hardware needs to change, needs to update, and part of that is the monitoring, monitoring of the.
So getting back to that, Rocco said he thinks self-cleaning camera stuff. So hardware 4 does not contain that. So you're thinking a hardware 5 may be necessary. You think that they're going to get to that point?
Well, no. So to be clear, they can have a robotaxi with the current hardware. The compute power is the main concern for me, and with the camera locations, a little bit for some blind corners. We have quite a few here in the mountains with a lot of foliage and everything, and they've improved it nonetheless with what they have currently. It works a lot better than it did in the past, but there's only so much you can do if the car literally can't see to the left because the camera is a little bit too far back, or to the right even. And I think at worst case scenario, they could upgrade the computer and geofence at certain areas, restricted to certain roads, and the current camera layout could do it. They could be like, no snow, no dirt roads, no heavy rain, but you have a robotaxi. But in order to do, snow, heavy rain, any condition a human would be in, I think they're going to have to new computer, maybe an additional camera up front. But that's to be seen.
They got to solve.
I think they could have it bare minimum with geofence. Yeah, exactly. And it might be this version doesn't do parking lots. It might be curb to curb. They can still have a robotaxi without doing parking lots.
Sure.
Yeah, I think there definitely will be a hardware 5 at some point, maybe hardware 6 or whatever. I mean, if the product is going to improve, there will need to be better hardware, and of course, like the sensors and stuff will get cheaper and better over time too, right? So you'll want to be able to take advantage of that. So I think there definitely will be other versions of the hardware.
And they're probably gonna. So hardware 4, then it wasn't confirmed to have radar.
Yeah. I think right now we're seeing, and we don't know, it's possible the hardware for it now is like a 3.5 as well. Like it might be
that's right.
Might not be a full 4 that for the cars that people have got out there, but yes, they're definitely adding radar back in, and there's been radar modules in cars.
Right. I mean, what we've seen is like, some cameras with like, ruby sapphire lenses that seem to indicate that they're different, but they're still in the same locations. But there's a hint with looking at the Cybertruck that they're going to add a camera on the nose, which they should obviously,
Right.
which is so obvious, Mike. Everybody knows that.
Everyone knows that,
Mike. So that so right now maybe like a 3.5, and so we'll see if there's a 4 or something.
My guess with the radar is that it's not necessary to make the robotaxi, but it helps improve safety. So you can, you can see a car in front of a car with the radar. You can see through heavy rain, fog, snow with the radar. And so that would be my guess is why they're adding it strictly to improve safety, more or less, than be necessary.
Sure.
Tesla
Sure.
Vision was going to save the world.
It still might, Mike. It
Yeah,
still might.
that's still possible.
The world is still here. It hasn't needed saving yet.
The Elon is concerned that he's contributed to AI destroying the world, and so we'll see. At some point, instead of the cars avoiding the pedestrians, it may start to aim at the pedestrians. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, when you see it say target acquired on your screen,
The main thing is when the headlights turn red. That's when you
it.
know.
That's the giveaway.
That's the new Tesla game. Forget
Oh,
the
watch
Steam Deck
out.
in my car. Alrighty. Well, man, it's been another podcast. We've done it. Man, I'm just looking at the clock. Where's the time gone? We could seriously talk about this stuff all day. Or anyway, but we will respect the time of our listeners and not do so. So it was great having you on, Rocco. I'm going to be checking out more of your videos. I looked through some of them when we were talking earlier, and there's a few in there, like even your non-Tesla ones that I find interesting. But I'm also a tech geek nerd person, so I'm probably your audience.
Definitely.
But
let me ask you real quick, Rocco. Like when you take your videos, is this just drives that you're already doing anyway, or are they like is it like, are you driving specifically to test something out?
For the most part, they're dry. So I like to just I make a loop around town every weekend to go do grocery shopping. I go on a hike with my dog. So it just happens to line up, and so I do it so often. I just make it into a test loop, and so that I like to keep my routes as consistent as possible. Trying scientific purposes.
When you compare A to A and B to B, yeah,
exactly.
Well, I think it's a great historical record of this sort of steady improvement, and so you'd have to be a special kind of nerd to watch every one of those videos, but I'm glad that it's there.
But we're out there,
3 of us, yeah.
and I think it's a real resource, is the thing. So,
and anyone that watches
what
it,
you're doing.
Yeah, the old videos won't have this, but the new ones have chapters in it. So obviously, most people don't have the time to watch through a 12, 20-minute video. So if you want to just get the highlights, just click through the chapters and click through each part and see what went wrong and what's good.
So Rocco, you have a YouTube channel. Do you have any other social media things, or do you want to plug what's your channel name for the viewers and listeners?
So my channel name now is just my name, Rocco Speranza. I think I have my second personal channel with the same name, but look for the image of the Tesla and it'll be pretty obvious.
Kind of gives it away.
Well, we'll include all that in our show notes.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes. So.
And then my Twitter handle is Rocco with a I think it's a 0 for the first O. Rocco Speranza. That's my Twitter handle. Funny enough, there are more Rocco Speranzas in the world, mostly in Italy. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a very Italian name. I would know as my name is Luigi.
My dad's
alrighty, so great. So yeah, check out Rocco's channel. And as always, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us, listening, all your comments, feedbacks, likes, dislikes. Thank you to the producers and those behind the show helping make this happen. Adam, big shout out. Awesome work. Danny, and
James,
Seb, I know you're out there. Hope things are good, Seb. We'll see you, maybe see you next time. Supporting member on the site. Yeah, go to teslamotorsclub.com, become a supporting member. Can't forget that one. And we'll see you guys next time.